appreciate that. Now I'm going to call a fine little lady out to help me do a song, and she sung with me on a CD that we made a few years ago called The Clinch Mountain Country. And this lady's from the great state of Kentucky, and a wonderful, my favorite singer, I guess, and all the ladies. Make welcome Patty Loveless. Amen.
I better be your favorite.
You are?
Okay, you say that to me tonight, but...
Am I yours?
Yes, you are, darling. Even though my husband's here tonight.
Okay.
He knows it now.
I appreciate it. You ready for Pretty Polly?
If you're ready for Pretty Polly.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, Polly, pretty Polly, would you take me unkind? Polly, pretty Polly, would you take me unkind? You just sit beside me and tell me you're mine.
Well, my mind is to marry, never to part. My mind is to marry and never to part. The first time I saw you, you wound in my heart.
Well, Polly, pretty Polly, come and go along with me. Polly, pretty Polly, come and go along with me. Before we get married, some pleasure we'll see.
Well, he led her over mountains and valleys so deep. Led her over mountains and valleys so deep. Polly mistrusted and then began to weep. Saying, Willie, little Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. Willie, little Willie, I'm afraid of your ways. The way you've been rambling and lead me astray.
Well, Polly, pretty Polly, your guess is about right. Polly, pretty Polly, your guess is about right. I dug on your grave, the biggest part of last night.
Then he led her a little farther, and what did she spy? Led her a little farther, and what did she spy? Knew the grave would spend lying by. Then she knelt down before him and pleading for her life. She knelt down before him, pleading for her life. Let me be a single girl if I can't be your wife.
Well, Polly, pretty Polly, that never can be. Polly, pretty Polly, that never can be. Your past reputation and trouble to me.
Then he opened up her bosom as white as any snow. He opened up her bosom as white as any snow and stabbed through the heart and blood had overflown.
And he went down to the jailhouse, and what did he say?
Hey everybody, can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me or not. hate I'm freezing up. Let me see. Can you hear me though? My phone's ringing. Can everybody hear me? My phone rang. I had to get it off. I don't know how to do that. Is it good now? You can hear me, Cindy? I lost my paper. Is it good now? Because if it's not, I'll stop this and just do it regular. I don't think I'm getting the messages. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm glad you could join us tonight. I am going to kind of go quickly because I don't know how much time my battery will last, to be honest. I just wanted to welcome everybody, and I'm glad you're here. I won't be able to see your comments right away while I'm off the screen. Like right now, I'm on Facebook, and I can see your comments, but I'm getting ready to switch over to Ancestry. So while I'm over there showing you the documents, I won't be able to see your comments, if that makes sense. So, one of the things that I did want to show you is I found a new story about Clifton that had been written, and I will read that to you in a little bit. It just been written in 2023, so it's new. Somebody in the Mountain Eagle had written it, and it had some stuff in it that I had never heard before. It's from his memoirs, and I've read his memoirs many times, but I didn't. There's a couple of things that I didn't know that are actually in this, so I want to show you that. But I'm going to click over now to John and Mahala, and what I want to do tonight is I want to show you the documentation that I have for him. And I am going to click back. If you can let me know if you can see these real quick, I'm going to click back to Facebook just so I know you're getting them. I'd hate to be sitting here talking to myself. So, everybody still good? I also may have grandkids in the background in just a minute. Okay, the first document, the first census record that I have for John and Mahala is the 1850 census. And I'm going to pull that up. If you look at the record of it on Ancestry, this is what it looks like. It'll tell you the name, and this particular place shows you what somebody from Ancestry transcribed it from. So when you look at these and you think something is not right, always go to the image and look at it, because it could have been transcribed incorrectly. So this says John Branham, male, white, age 28, which means he was born about 1822. They have his birthplace as Virginia. His home in 1850 is Pike County. His occupation is farmer. He cannot read or write. And then it'll give you the dwelling number and the family number. It also will list the people that are in his home. So when you click on the image, this is what it's going to be. And I'll try to zoom in for you on these. So if you can see at the top, it says 1850 United States Federal Census for John Branham. This is his name. And there you see where it says 28, male, farmer. And something I want us to notice is here it says Virginia is where he was born, cannot read or write. The next one down says Mahala, and it says she's 27. But if you notice in the 1850, it also says that her birthplace is Virginia. That's not correct, but we'll see that later. The children that are living with them in the 1850 census is Elizabeth, Joseph, Richard, and Charity. Elizabeth is 7, Joseph is 4, Richard is 3, and Charity is 1. Everybody, it says, was born in Virginia except for the last one, and she was born in Kentucky, which is probably where they're living now, I would say, if I was guessing. Okay, let me click off of that. Go back to John. The next one I have is the 1860 census. When you view that record, it still says that they're living in Pike County. Here it says that his birthplace is still Virginia, and he's about 40 years old. In this one, it gives his real estate value as $100 and his personal estate value as $100, and it still says he cannot read or write. I'm going to flip back and see if you guys have any questions real quick. It may not update. Okay. Okay, on this one, this is still the 1860, and this is the actual document. This one, we also get a middle initial for John. So John C. Branham, 40, male, farm laborer. His real estate is $100. His personal estate is $100. In this one, you see he was born in Virginia, but this one is one that it now starts showing Mahala as being born in Tennessee. Neither one of them can read or write. It shows Elizabeth as being 18, Joseph, Uncle Joe, as being 15, Uncle Richard is 14, Charity is 12. Here's Tandy. He comes in the picture now at 10. Adeline is 7. Sarah J, is 5. And Millie is 2. The last 2 were born in Kentucky, but if you notice, remember the last one we showed Charity as being born in Kentucky with the other 3 born in Virginia, the other 3 children. But then they moved back to Virginia sometime between 1850 and 1860. They were either moved back or they were visiting. 2 of their children were born back in Virginia. So I feel like that they moved to Pike County and then crossed back over to Wise County or somewhere between 1850 and 1860. But then they moved back to Pike County, and Sarah and Millie were born there in Kentucky. So let's see what's next. Go back to John. Okay, the next one I have is the 1870 census. And this actually gives a post office, which is Robinson Creek in Pike County. And it does say that the personal estate value is $100. This one, it says he's 51, born in Virginia, still a farmer, and he is a male citizen over 21. This one, I think, is the one that it's very hard to read. So you may not be able to see anything. I think that when you actually look at the documents in person, they're probably more legible than they are online. This one's very, very hard to read. Like, I can see Mahala up close. I can see it. You may not be able to see it from the screen, but I can make out John Branham. Male white farmer. There's where it says 100. Again, here's where it says he was born in Virginia. Another confirmation that Mahala was born in Tennessee. And living with them. This is Tandy, Sarah Jane, Millie, Clifton. Clifton comes in the picture now. He's at 10 years old. Polly, it lists Polly. And then it says Adeline Tackett. That's Adeline. She's 16. She has been married at this time. Kentucky for Sarah as a birthplace. Kentucky for Millie. Then it says Kentucky for Clifton. Kentucky for Polly. And then Adeline was born in Virginia, according to the 1870 census. They are in Pike County here. Let me flip back and see if anybody's saying anything. I'm not getting updates very fast. I may be freezing it up. I don't know. Okay, 1880. They are still in the same place in Robinson Creek, Wise County, Virginia. Now it says John C. is 60. It says, I had to get one of my grandkids, sorry. John C. There's another indication that his middle initial is C. John C. He's white, he's a male, and he is listed as 60 years old. He's married, and he's a farmer. This one, though, says that John was born in Kentucky. The birthplace of his father and the birthplace of his mother is Kentucky. That's not correct. Mahala is 55, his wife, and this relationship is to the relationship to the head of the household. John's listed as the head of the household, then she'd be the wife of him. Keeping house. This one also says Kentucky, Kentucky, Kentucky for their birthplace. The thing you have to realize about census records, sometimes if a census taker was taking records, they may ask a neighbor. And if you've ever been in Eastern Kentucky, and a lot of you are from there, you know how deep hollers run. So what could possibly have happened, and I've been told, that sometimes census records would stop at the end of the holler and just ask the person that lived at the end of the holler, hey, who lives up through here? And it would be a neighbor or someone giving the information. So they may not have actually known accurate details. Instead of walking 3 miles deep into the holler, they just asked one person close by, and that's how they got their information. So let's go back to this. living in the household in 1880. And you have to remember, I should have said the last census when we couldn't read it very well. John had just come out of the Civil War. So this is 15, 16 years after the Civil War. So John C. Mahala Clifton, and notice this also, Clifton is living with him. He's white, he's a male, he's 18, and he's a son. But underneath him, it also says Nancy J. Branham, white, female, 18, daughter-in-law. So this is Nancy Clifton's wife that was actually they were actually living with John and Mahala. And then Mary below this is also Polly. One of the names for Mary was Polly. Polly and Mary were interchangeable names at that time. It says Kentucky, Kentucky, Kentucky. It does say that Mary or Polly attended school, cannot read or write. And if any of you are aware, there is not an 1890 census. Those were burned up and did not survive. So the next one available is the 1900. Now remember, John dies in 1905. So the 1905 census or the 1900 census is the last one that John is going to be on. So let's see what that says. I'm going to check for comments real quick and see if I can see anything. Okay, I'm not getting anything. I hope you can still hear me. So here we go. He's 82 years old. This one, it does say his birth date is August 1817. And we have April 1818 as his birth date. On the 1900, it has Clintwood, Dickinson County, Virginia. If you can see at the top, it'll show the state there in Virginia, the county, Dickinson. Township or other division of the county is Clintwood. The day that the census was taken was the 2nd day of June. That's important sometimes if somebody has a birthday before or a birthday after. The person that did the census, name, I think it says Roland E. Chase. Also, when you look at a census record, know that typically the houses will fall in line. So these were his actual neighbors. Am I froze? Am I froze up? Okay, there it is. Okay, this says John C., August 1817. Virginia, again it says Virginia as his birthplace, Virginia as his father's birthplace and his mother. Then Mahala, here it says she was born in Tennessee, but it also gives her father's birthplace and her mother's birthplace as Tennessee. So that's good information. Another thing in the 1900, it lists that Mahala has 11 children, and 9 of them are still living in 1900. So we need to look at that and see, because I think I only have 10 children listed. Living with them is a grandchild, Giltner. Giltner, I believe it was Giltner Cox. I believe it was Millie's son. That's the 1900. Is it still gone? Sorry, I hit a button. Maybe I just need to get off Facebook. Hang on a sec, guys. Did that fix it? Did that fix it? Or am I still froze? I don't think it's working now. Okay, I'm going to go on because it is still recording and I can post it after if it is still freezing up. So 1900 is the last census that John is on. So let's switch over here to Mahala. So let's see. She dies in 1912. So she's on one more census record, and that's the 1910. Okay, I am back. Thank you. Sorry. Here Mahala is listed. Her relationship to the head of the household is mother-in-law. So let's see which child she's living with. This is the 1910. She's still in Dickinson County in Clintwood, Virginia. Scroll down here. So she's living with Joseph Bryant, the head of the household, and Millie. So Millie was married to Joseph Bryant at this time. And it says Mahaley. I think we all know her as Haley. If you notice too on this one, Joseph is 71, Millie is 53. They've been married for 2 years. This says years married 2. If you look at this marital status, M2 means that this is their second marriage. So they've been married, both Joseph and Millie have been married twice. This one gives they speak English. Joseph is a farmer. And then after that, we know that Grandma Mahala passed away in 1912. So that's what I have on her and him. One of the things that I did want to share with you tonight is the story that I found, and I hope that you can hear. There's 2 different stories that were printed in the Mountain Eagle, and I'm just going to read the first one to you this week, and maybe next week we'll do the other one if my voice stays together. This was written March 30th, 2022. I'm sorry, I said 2023. 2022 by Jaden Gibson is the gentleman's name. And it says, Letcher native, last man hanged in Wise. And it says, there wasn't much suspense leading up to Clifton Branham's trial for killing his wife. There were eyewitnesses to the shooting, and even Clifton admitted to the crime. Clifton was a guitar player, and Wise County Sheriff Wilburn Killen allowed him to have his guitar in jail. He played it often in the weeks leading up to his hanging. When he wasn't picking the guitar, he was busy writing, which is funny to me because on those census records it says that he couldn't write. So somewhere between the census records and his death, he learned to write. He played it often in the weeks leading up to his hanging. When he wasn't picking the guitar, he was busy writing. Unlike his incarceration in the Kentucky State Prison in Frankfort, where he became a heavy reader, Clifton spent a lot of his time in the Wise County Jail with pen in hand. This article I liked because it does have a lot of names in it. It has the judges' names. It has the court, the people that stood on the jury, their names. So I wanted to read that. Judge W.S. Matthews appointed John A. Hughes, a local practicing attorney, to defend Branham. Jury members were W.R. Willis, Jesse Bishop, Ellis Elkins, J.W. Mullins, Jerry Wells, Robert Tate, W.A. Childress, W.R. Collier, Elia Creech, J.A. Dorton, I.R. Gilley, and Jive Tate. Mr. Branham, do you have or know any reason why this court should not pronounce judgment against you? Judge Matthews asked late in the trial, staring directly at the defendant. Clifton shook his head and mouthed an inaudible no. Then, nothing being offered or alleged to delay, it is considered by this court that you will be hanged by the neck until dead, the judge said. Sheriff Gillen, take charge of the prisoner and keep him safe until Friday, the 25th day of September, 1903. On that day, take him to the place of execution between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Mr. Branham is to be hanged by the neck until he is dead. Branham stood trial in the same courthouse as Badtop Hall and Dr. M.B. Taylor, also known as the Red Fox of the Mountains. He also received the same sentence as Hall and Taylor, death by hanging. The doomed man delayed little emotion, and he knew it was coming. Clifton maintained two hopes in the weeks before his execution. If it were at all possible, he would feign his death. His second hope was based in his religious convictions. He instructed Robert Mullins of the Camp Creek section of Dickinson County, Virginia, to claim his body right away after the hanging and take it to that adjoining county. But Bob, open the coffin as soon as you get out of town, Clifton told him. I hope to fool them into thinking I'm dead, and I'll need air. If that doesn't work, take me on to Dickinson and keep me for 3 days. I'm going to raise up from the dead. His sister, Millie Branham Cox, prayed aloud the whole day of Clifton's hanging. Branham spent the morning picking sacred songs on his guitar while a throng of Virginians and Kentuckians strained in silence to hear from outside. Branham was calm and composed as he walked up the steps of the gallows. He stood on the trap door while the noose was placed around his neck. The hangman methodically hatcheted the rope, sending Branham through the trap door and into eternity. He fell several feet before the rope abruptly halted this fall. Soon he was dead. It was the last hanging in Wise County, Virginia. After Branham was pronounced dead, his body was put in a wooden box and loaded into the back of Mullins' wagon. He immediately left town, and as soon as Mullins had an opportunity, he stopped the wagon and opened the lid of the coffin. Although Branham's face was covered with unusually large drops of sweat, his body was cold in death. Heavy rope marks were evident on his throat. Residents along the trail to Dickinson County came out of their homes to the road to watch as the wagon passed, some asking to see his body. 3 days later, on September 28, 1903, friends and family members waited about his homemade coffin, but the day passed without incident. He was buried the following day. When his sister went to the Wise County Jail to pick up Branham's personal effects, she was surprised at what she found. In the previous weeks, the doomed man had written the life and confessions of Clifton Branham. I was born on Cabin Branch in Letcher County, Kentucky, the year the Civil War broke out, 1861, Clifton wrote. 2 of my brothers were in the war. My father was a farmer, but when the war came along, it got him into it too. He was captured and taken to Camp Chase. He was kept there until the end of the war. When the war began, Mahala Branham took the remainder of her family, 2 sons and 4 daughters, to Pike County, Kentucky. My mother had it real hard in the war, Clifton declared. She had all the chores at home, too many, and she also had to take in work or do chores for others. She was trying to keep us all together. It kept her away from home a lot. They were living on the north side of Cumberland Mountain near Elkhorn Creek when the war ended. When my father came back home after the war, he looked so skinny and so bad my mother couldn't recognize him, Branham wrote in his memoirs. Finally, when she did recognize him, I never in my life saw her more happy. They had a happy meeting. During the next few years, one by one, Clifton's siblings left home. Game was plentiful. Clifton accompanied his dad on many enjoyable hours in the wilds. This led to his dad developing a keen interest in hunting. His family moved to an even more isolated area named Beefhide, and later his father bought property and built a cabin on Owl Branch. I was 12 years old, Clifton recalled. Me and Dad worked all week long, and then on Saturday afternoon we would both go squirrel hunting. My life was so good. I was so happy as my little feet roamed through the mountains, but something terrible happened. My father started abusing me. I couldn't understand it at first. He wasn't treating me right. I lay on my straw tick bedroll at night and wondered what to do. I had to do something. I finally decided to run away from home because Daddy just wasn't treating me right. I decided I would go to Johnson County, Kentucky, where a brother and 2 sisters lived. That was 80 or 90 miles away, and I was only 12 years old. I just left early one morning without a word. Everything was all right until nightfall when I stopped at a cabin and asked if I could stay the night. They refused. There were mighty few houses on the wagon road, and by the time I reached the next house it was dark and raining. I called to the man of the house, and he came to the door. "What do you want?" he asked. When I told him I wanted to stay the night with him until morning, he slammed the door without saying a word. By this time it had become very dark, and Clifton could barely see his way. I walked ahead slowly as best as I could, Clifton penned. At last I came to a barn, and I climbed way up into the loft and slept there all night. The rain was pouring the next morning, but Clifton knew he must go. It rained until the creek was out of its banks, and he had to wade until he came to a place where there was a makeshift bridge made from 2 logs stretched across the swollen creek. He shivered from the wet cold, and after a long while Clifton came to another house, and his "Hello!" like I did that, brought a young boy to the door. Every stitch of young Clifton's clothing was wet. "I fell in the creek, and I'm almost frozen to death," Clifton exclaimed through chattering teeth. The boy's father must have heard, because he appeared from within the dark cabin and said, "Come in, boy," in the friendliest voice Clifton had ever heard. The old man was throwing wood on the fire as Clifton walked in. He began stoking the fire, Clifton wrote. I looked to my right and could see that they had been eating breakfast. I don't know what I wanted more, to warm by the fire or to eat. That is, if I had to make the choice. He had me sit and warm by the fire after wrapping a heavy quilt over my shoulders. After a while he told Clifton to sit down with him and have breakfast. I told him I had no money, Clifton wrote, and he said that makes no difference. I ate breakfast and stayed until I was dry. He then told me the way to go, and before nightfall I was at my brother's home. 80 miles through rain and swollen creeks in 2 days. I was 12 years old. That's the end of this part of that story, but I thought that was very interesting. I had never heard the part about John was mistreating Clifton. I had never heard that part. So I wanted to read that to you guys. And there is another part that I'll try to read to you next week. The next thing I wanted to tell you about is last week we had someone Cindy, if you're on here, Cindy Ellsworth asked me if I could find out anything about her husband's family. And I did ask if there was anything that anybody wanted me to research. So I'm going to show that real quick. Let me go back to this for you guys. If I can remember her. There's her husband. And Cindy's relationship to John and Mahala is through her paternal side. Here's her tree. And I do try to put you guys in as fast as I can, so that if I do update my books, you guys will be in it. If you see, here's Sylvester, his mother, that's Cindy's father, then her mother, and her grandparents. It goes on out to George Mullet. And here's Elizabeth, the oldest daughter of John and Mahala. So that's her relationship to them. So she had asked me if I could find anything about her husband. No relation to John and Mahala, but real quick, I did find, here's Richard, if you can see. And then this is the Ellsworth line that she wanted me to find. So I did find them back to Samuel Benjamin Job Ellsworth, 1674, back in Connecticut. So you can show him that, and I'll screenshot that and send it to you. If anybody has anything else that they would like for me to look up, just let me know. I'd be happy to, and see what we can find out for you. The other thing I wanted to see if you wanted to do, instead of just doing a Facebook Live and listening to me talk, if there's anybody interested in maybe doing some Zoom calls, I would like to hear from you while I'm sitting here instead of trying to figure out what to say by myself. So that's pretty much all that I have tonight. I hope that you learned something about our family, and we'll do it again. Whether we do it right here directly on Facebook Live next week or we go through Zoom, we may try to do both, but I would like for some of y'all to join me. And I think with what I'm doing, I used a program called Switcher Studio, and that's what's freezing up, but I thought you'd be able to see the documentation better. So let me know if you'd be interested in doing a Zoom call. I'd say some of us got used to those during COVID, so during the pandemic. So I'm going to get off, and I appreciate you guys so much, and thanks for listening to me ramble. Let me know what you think about the Zoom, or if you want to stay here on Facebook Live. Thanks, guys.